Hello and welcome to phuketpals GED Express screencast with me, Teacher Eman. Today's lesson focuses on recognizing functions. How can we recognize a function? In general, any type of mathematical rule can be represented by a table or graph. How can you tell if the rule is a function? How can you tell if a table or graph represent a function? Look at the table showing the output y for each input x. And remember, with functions, for each input, there is only one output by definition. Again, with functions, for each input, there is only one output by definition. Let's look at some example. In the table, y is the value after a rule f is applied to x. Let's check the table. There is one input that appears twice. X is equals to -1. That is acceptable as long as the value of the output y is the same for both. However, in one case, when x is equals to -1, y is equals to 0. And in the other, y is equals to 2. Because there are two possible outputs for one input of x, f is not a function of x in this case. Let's look at another table. Let's check. Does the table represent y as a function of x for the given values of x? Yes, here y is a function of x for these values. Each input has only one possible output. As you can see, in the previous examples, when checking a table, the key is to see if an input does not result in more than one output. When checking a graph, this idea remains the same. However, there is a shortcut that you can use called the vertical line test. This rule says that given any graph, if there is any place where a vertical line would touch the graph more than once, then the graph does not represent a function. Let's see how this works. Determine if the graph represents y as a function of x. This graph looks like a function until you approach x is equals to 3. After that, there are two y outputs for each x input. You can see this by using the vertical line test. Because the line intersects with two separate lines at the same position, this graph does not show y as a function of x. Remember that when using the vertical line test, you only need to find one place where the line touches 2 points on the graph. Let's look at this graph on the screen. This graph also does not show y as a function of x. Why? Because there is one place where a vertical line passes through 2 points on the graph. This graph shows two possible outputs for x minus 2, or x is equals to -2. So y is not a function of x. Also be careful with the symbols used. An open circle means that the function is not defined at that point. Just changing the preceding graph, a little bit will make it a function. Look at this empty circle here. The function is not defined at this point. Now that the circle is open, there is only one output for x is equals to -2. So now the graph represents a function. Finally, here are other more examples so you can see that graphs can come in all types. The first graph does show a function because no vertical line could pass through 2 points. However, the second graph does not show a function. As you can see, it is possible to find places where a vertical line could touch more than 1 point on the graph. So y is not a function of x. Let's try some more tables and graphs. Let's see if we can easily identify now if the table or graph represent a function. Let's try out. Determine whether the table or graphs represents y as a function of x for the given values. The first table. Yes, y is a function of x. The second table. Yes, y is not a function of x. Why? Because when x is equals to 0, there are two values of y, -5 and 6. So the table does not represent a function. How about looking at this graph? We can see an empty circle here. So it means the function is not defined here. So at this point, when x is equals to 3, there is only one value. Y is equals to 3. So the graph represents the function. So in this case, y is a function of x. How about this one? Yes, y is not a function of x. As you can see, for each value of x, there are more than one value of y. So in that case, this second graph does not represent a function. So y is not a function of x. That's all for this video. If you'd like to know more about phuketpals, see our Facebook page or call us on 081-417-0978. If you find this video useful, please hit the subscribe button below. It helps us help more people like you.